How's it going, everybody? Brett Mix here. Right after the more questions and answers press conference, we have WWE SmackDown from Charlotte, North Carolina, February the 9th, 2024. So bottom line tonight, we need answers. They advertised Triple H for the show, and Cole mentions the press conference, and there's still 2 months to go. That doesn't matter. We need answers, and we need answers tonight. We needed one last night, but we'll settle for some answers tonight. This SmackDown, guys, was a bit underwhelming. When you look at what happened last night, we should have known that they were going to drag this out. It's Mania season. It can't be dragged out too long, but we know the main event, but some clarity would have been nice for that main event. Looks like we're going to have to wait another week to clear things up with Rock and Cody. Should also be interesting to see what Rollins has to talk about on Monday Night Raw. We open up. Let's just take a look at this SmackDown, though, how it all came about. We open up with Corey Graves during his second broadcast as play-by-play guy. They show Triple H walking backstage, so that's big news that Triple H is going to come out. What's he going to settle? Then I figured they show the press conference highlights right off the get-go for the people that didn't see it. They announced Cody Roman as if we all forgot Cody said not at WrestleMania last week on SmackDown. But Triple H, comes out first, so maybe we'll get some answers. Brian Gerwitz is back there trying to tie up loose ends on the writing team, so hopefully he does that next week. But we'll see what he says next week. But for now, Triple H just had to tell us what his thoughts were, and basically it wasn't much. Let's see if they can make answers out of this, though. We also need to know how this affects The Rock and Rollins in both editions going into WrestleMania. We need to know how Seth Rollins is going to be tied up into all this. What answers will we get? I wrote in my notes. Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, the GMs, are in the ring, and Triple H says it feels like WrestleMania season. Well, it should. We're a couple weeks past the Royal Rumble, Triple H. Triple H said some people don't know their role. And Triple H said all the decisions run through Triple H. Well, there it is. I mean, I'm in the community, there's so many people giving Triple H a pass on a lot of the decisions. Oh, his hands are tied. Triple H is the one running all of the creative decisions. He's not on the board, but he's running every creative decision there is to run. Or it's at least filtering through him, just like it filtered through Vince. Triple H is the new Vince. So if you're going to bug Vince, bug Triple H if something's going wrong creatively. Triple H says all the decisions run through him, and it doesn't matter if you don't like his decision. Using Rock quotes a couple times. That's all fine and everything, and they tease Rock Triple H again for next week, but I'll get to that. And that's fine and everything, but what about The Rock is what I'm thinking. What about his involvement? What about Cody saying last week it wouldn't be at Mania? So they need to answer. Brian Gerwitz and the team need to answer, and Triple H need to answer those questions next week when we get Roman and Rock on the show. So if they answer those two things, I'll have it settled. Just to say it doesn't matter, it seems a little bit lazy in the writing, but if they have it planned for next week, I guess we can wait one more week. We've waited this long. Why not wait another week? And if you're saying to yourself, well, Brett, it's a tough situation to make a story out of, it's really not. I could do something off the top of my head to clarify these things. I could say, Cody says something like, I was originally going to have The Rock face Reigns to show who the head of the table was, but the more people talked to me, the more I knew this would be my only chance to dethrone Roman on the biggest stage, right? This is what Cody could say to get out of this whole predicament and make some clarity of this main event situation. Cody could have said what I just said. He could have said that, yeah, The Rock was going to take on Roman. This was a personal thing, but I'm going to take on Roman afterwards. It's not the greatest, but it's at least an explanation. They didn't give us that. Something like that would have sufficed. But as of now, they just have Triple H say it doesn't matter if you don't like it. It seems a bit meh to me. It seems a little bit lazy creatively. And there's other ways they could have gone about it, but that's just a simple one. Nick Aldis says Seth Rollins' opponent will be decided at the Chamber, so at least we get some answers there. And tonight we're going to get qualifying matches. 12 men, 6 matches through 3 events. So that's tonight's SmackDown, this Monday's Raw, and next week's SmackDown. The brand extension clearly doesn't work with this. So but what I'm wondering is, what if a SmackDown star wins this Chamber? Does he now become a Raw member because Rollins is on Raw? That's what I'm wondering. So, what if LA Knight, one of the favorites, does he become exclusive to Raw, or is he on both brands? That's the kind of thing I wish was cleared up and a little bit more clear. If they're going to do a multi-branded chamber, at least clear that up. Because I remember in 2004 when Chris Benoit won the Rumble, he changed brands. He decided to challenge Triple H instead of Brock Lesnar for the title, so he went to Raw. Drew comes out and talks about Punk, plugs his shirt, talks about how he wanted Cody to finish the story, and he will. He says to the fans, "You're welcome." He then talks about how he says finally he's going to get his WrestleMania moment in front of people. And with Triple H in charge, you can bet he'll probably do exactly that. Like I said, LA Knight's probably one of the favorites. Drew McIntyre would be a distant second for who's the favorite for this Elimination Chamber, in my opinion. It's Drew and it's Knight. I hope it's LA Knight, though, now that this is a multi-branded situation. Put in LA Knight on Raw and let him win this whole thing. It's pretty obvious AJ doesn't stand a chance versus Drew going into this match. That's what I wrote in my notes before the match. Because Drew just had this whole big promo, plus he's talked about this for weeks now, about how he was going to be in the main event. So that's got to be everybody's favorite. Not favorite like I want you to win, but favorite as in the betting favorite, who should be winning. And again, not should out of choice, but should be out of what's probably going to happen. So the first match of the night is an 2024 Elimination Chamber qualifier. It's Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles. The first chamber qualifier for the right to be in the pod, and that steal begins now for the first match of the night. What I'm wondering is why they put two heels in this match. It's a multi-branded chamber, but at least put a face versus a heel. I mean, you got 12 guys to work with. Why are you booking a tweener versus a heel? Or maybe it's tweener versus tweener. Or maybe it's heel versus tweener. We don't really know these days. The lines between faces and heels are so bland. It's not a straight path. Sort of like the path to WrestleMania. It's all over the place. What I'm wondering is what's next for AJ after this, but we'll get to that. To begin this match, LA Knight's music hits. He comes out and does commentary, and that's my second favorite after McIntyre to win this chamber. Orton would be the third, but we'll get to that. And you got to think those are, and that's in order. I think Drew, LA Knight, Randy Orton, in order of who I think will win. To begin the match, LA Knight comes out to do commentary. As I said, Drew McIntyre with hellacious chops to AJ Styles. McIntyre sends AJ into the barricade, and we go to a commercial. Back from commercial, Drew McIntyre hoists AJ on his shoulders, and then AJ counters with a sunset flip. It takes a while to get McIntyre down for the powerbomb, and once he does, This Is Awesome chant begins. Really now. That chant was just started up, and it was out of nowhere. The match was certainly not great, even nowhere near awesome. A couple of sequences happened, and the fans just were ready to chant, "This was awesome." A Future Shock DDT, and he keeps up. It's as redundant as the what chants. Future Shock DDT, and he keeps up does McIntyre, who goes for a Claymore, but he has a hurt knee. AJ with a calf crusher working on that knee, but Drew gets to the ropes. LA Knight on the outside offers AJ Styles a drink out of his bottle, but then when that's happening, Drew pushes AJ into Knight. So Knight goes flying from around the table area. Back in the ring, AJ goes up top to work on the legs. AJ had McIntyre rolled up as he was focused on LA Knight, but then he turns around and walks right into a Claymore. A Claymore party. Drew McIntyre wins at TV time of 11 and a half minutes. Match was decent at best for what these guys are capable of. If this was like Farouk versus Ahmed Johnson, then yeah, I'd give it like 3 stars. But since it's Drew and AJ, I gave it a 2.5. The whole pointing to the sign shit has got to stop too. Even potential contenders are now pointing to the sign. That's overkill. It's not only every year, but it's every person, and it's not even contenders. It's actually just people that are fighting to be contenders pointing to the sign. There's got to be another way than saying I'm going to WrestleMania. Why not do like the belt taunt? Like I'm going to be champion, and just do like a belt taunt, like by the waist. Why does it have to be? Sami Zayn cut a promo backstage saying last year he was in the main event of WrestleMania, and this week he sees a path to get back, so he'll take it. As he takes on Orton tonight, likely the main event of another chamber qualifying match. They do a pretty deadly segment. Great. Because they're known to be hilarious, aren't they? That's 2 minutes of my life I'll never get back when they're looking at the sky and talking about how it looks like the Queen. I don't know. I tuned out, guys. I just tuned out. They talk about Bait and Dunn versus DIY with the winners facing the Judgment Day at the Chamber. As we all know, they both won Fatal 4-Ways to get there, so that match is later in the night. Our next match is Bianca Belair versus Mi Chin or Mia Yim of the OC. Belair took it to Mi Chin early and we get a break. Bianca Belair and Mi Chin exchange rights, but then walks into a clothesline and a drop kick followed by a neck breaker by Mi Chin to Bianca Belair. Mi Chin tried to capitalize on all her offense with a lot of her press, but Bianca Belair says nope. Bianca Belair, who has her up for a KOD, but Mi Chin countered and took her to the floor after landing on her feet. Mi Chin then wasted no time throwing her back in the ring to not get it counted out, but to further up on the offense and try and get her into a pinning predicament, but Bianca Belair had other plans. She reversed her into a back body drop followed by the KOD, and in just under 7 minutes, Bianca Belair is headed to the Chamber. In another Chamber qualifying match, this time for the women, Bianca Belair is victorious. I rated the match a star and 3/4. Up next, they show Bayley walking to the ring, and she has this half smile on her face. Then it becomes a full smile as she continues to walk. Okay, she's face now, baby face. But don't tell me she's going to completely alter her character and start giving hugs. She needs to keep calling people idiots. Maybe not the fans, because she's a face, but she has to keep some of the heel Bayley, or else it's just not believable that you could change that much 1 week to the next. All because your friends don't like you anymore. I'm sure she knows this, so I'm willing to be open-minded about it. And in this segment, I think she did well. I don't think she was contrived at any point with any fake emotion. I think she transitioned quite well from being a heel all these months of the years that she's been heel. I think it's a couple years now. So she did well. And I'm a big Bayley fan, so I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bayley fan, but I think she actually transitioned quite as well as she could have, to be honest. She didn't get material out there like for promos, but for the promo tonight, but at least she did a good transition. I'm sure she knows this. She knows how to be a face. She was face for a long time. Triple H has asked advice on whether he should join Raw or SmackDown by Braun Breaker, but then the wise man, Paul Heyman, shows up to confront Triple H before this Bayley segment. Bayley is still walking to the ring, but this is backstage before Bayley gets there. We get a bombshell that The Rock and Roman will be on SmackDown next week, but the fans, of course, don't pop at that news because they know that they're now likely not to see them this week. That's what the live fans, they always pop. They're like, oh yeah, it's a good idea, but they're like, oh no, it's not, because we're not the ones going to see that. It's kind of like when Stone Cold used to say to Triple H, I'm going to get your ass in a match for the world title. The fans cheer, and then he goes, this Sunday on pay-per-view, and then they go, oh shit. Damn, we're not going to see it. There's better examples, but that's just one of them. But the WWE likes to spread their announcements out like peanut butter. They just wait and wait. If something happens the next show, nope, it's going to be next week. So they talk about it for a week. They want as many eyeballs on this as possible, so they're delaying the inevitable. Anyways, hopefully next week those loose ends get tied up by Brian Gerwitz, the writer, and Triple H and everybody in company, The Rock. Those are, if the Rock's Mania involvement and why Cody said not at Mania last week. Those are the two things we need to be cleared up. Why Cody said not at WrestleMania, and again, I earlier pointed out a way Cody could get through that by saying, originally, I thought the Tribal Chief should just face The Rock. But now, after I talked about it with everyone else, I know this is my only chance. This is the best chance. Something like that. Give us something like that. Just an explanation. It doesn't have to be a good one. Just give us something. So that's the loose end they need to tie up, and The Rock's Mania involvement. And if we are going to see a Rock and Roman feud or potential partnership out of this. Those are the two questions that need to be answered next week when The Rock shows up. And Triple H said backstage to Paul Heyman, can't wait. So this Bayley segment happened. She came out to a good ovation after having just turned face. You deserve it, chants at Bayley, who says damage control meant everything to her. Once confronted by Dakota Kai, she's interrupted and she goes back to go. She says, "Are you ghosting me? I have been trying to text you all week." Bayley says she saw them laughing with her and asked Dakota, "Where do you stand now that you're here, now that you're apologizing?" Io and the Kabuki Warriors come down and clear the ring, and Bayley sees where she stands as Dakota grabs a chair and starts wailing at Damage Control, but they don't come back in the ring because they're scared of her. Fans do the what chant during Dakota's promo, though, before Io and the Kabuki Warriors came to the ring. I don't know if they're still Damage Control, but I'll call them Io and the Kabuki Warriors. Before that, Dakota was talking on the mic, and the fans just chant what whenever they don't like somebody, or when when they don't like the angle. If it's somebody like Dominic Mysterio or they don't like, that's one thing. But if they don't like the angle, they'll chant what just to get out of the segment. It's the ultimate disrespect, but she played it off pretty good. It wasn't a material on the mic tonight, like I said, but they played it off well. Orton talks backstage about how the most destructive words in sports entertainment are. And if they're watching Raw, those letters are WWE. But since this is SmackDown, which has been better, those letters are RKO. DIY takes on Bate and Dunn for the number one contendership to get to the Elimination Chamber to face the Judgment Day for the tag titles. Gargano and Bate with a great sequence as both men stand back. The fans applaud. Bate runs into an elbow from Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa then coming out like a psycho with a double clothesline. Amazing exchanges by both teams during this match. Gargano with an airplane spin against him, and Bate goes around the world with a man on his shoulders flying with an airplane spin. Crazy spot there. Dunn and Bate countered at a big-ass tornado DDT on the outside. 4 hungry superstars desperate, says Bad News Barrett. You knew going into this match we'd get a special stiff, a lot of kicks, a lot of flying moves. They almost did a meet in the middle until the Bruiserweight broke his hand on the outside. Bate with a double clothesline to the DIY. A Tyler Driver is countered, but he gets a thrust kick to Gargano. Then Bate lands on Ciampa with a suicide dive. Dunn with the bitter end pins Gargano. Dunn and Bate win in under 10 minutes to get a title shot against the Judgment Day. Surprising winners. I thought DIY was going to win this match, but nope. It ends up being Dunn and Bate. I gave it 2 stars and 3/4. If a bit longer, it would have been probably high 3 stars match, mid 3 stars. I figured the DIY, these stars don't matter. I'm just showing how good the match is. I'm not saying these stars are going to be written in stone and or as if anyone's going to care that much. But I rate them just so I can tell you where I stand with how good the match was. So just to make that clear, because I know that if I was watching somebody and them talking about, oh yeah, 2 stars and a quarter, I'd be like, well, what's that mean? Like in the grand scheme of things. So that's why I'm just explaining that that's what it's for. I figure the DIY would have won, but as I said, it's good to see Bate and Dunn get the victory. R-Truth pops up out of nowhere as Dirty Dom was talking and KO was against him, as KO said, I'm going to face you next week. And then R-Truth comes up and says, you got to make sure Nick doesn't see you, Nick Aldis. And the fans chant, we want truth. And Kevin Owens said Nick Mysterio, because he's playing as Dom and Nick Mysterio a few weeks ago, when Dominic Mysterio, when R-Truth thought there was a Dom and then there was a Nick, because Dom and Nick. So that's why Kevin Owens played to that and said, you talking about Nick Mysterio? That was hilarious. I don't know if it landed or not. I don't know if the fans got that as well as I just explained it. I don't think they got that because I didn't hear any laughter. But R-Truth continues to be gold backstage, saying, aren't you supposed to be on Raw? Logan Paul says, you put me in a qualifying match. He finds out he has to face The Miz next week. There's no pop, to the surprise of absolutely no one. A Chamber qualifying match. Randy Orton takes on Sami Zayn. Randy Orton should be victorious here, but I've been wrong before. Guess I wasn't wrong again. Orton and Zayn lock up, and Orton with shots high on Zayn. Zayn falls to the floor, and Orton joins him on the outside. Orton throws him to the barricade, but Zayn lands on his feet and hits a moonsault from the barricade to the floor, catching Orton awkwardly. Orton goes for a side suplex on the table, and Zayn lands on his feet. Then Zayn turns the tables on Orton, says Graves. Good double meaning there, as Zayn hits a side suplex to Orton on the table. Randy, back from the break, pulls out a superplex from the top rope, and a lot of impact on Randy. Things get dramatic with a blue thunder bomb, but Orton kicks out after a lateral press. Panic in the eyes of Zayn as he tries to capitalize on his back with a springboard move. He elevated himself off the side ropes only to fall into a mid-air RKO by Orton. 2.25 stars. I give it as Orton is victorious. After the match, Orton celebrated as he points. Well, I don't know if he pointed to the sign, but he's joining the Elimination Chamber. Orton, or earlier, I believe McIntyre pointed. That's what drove me nuts. This show overall was a 5.5 out of 10 because we didn't get some of the answers we needed. We got our main events. We got the Cody and Roman, but it was too bad if you don't like this answer. Triple H pleased who he thought was the majority of the fans because people made enough noise. Now we hear that next week Roman and Rock will be there. Please tie up the loose ends about why Cody changed his mind and The Rock's involvement. Also tell us, tease an angle that we might get Roman and Rock one day. If those things are answered, then I'll be fine with it. So perhaps next year, maybe Roman and Rock happen, but just give us a tease of something. Either way, next week and an explanation. It'll be a must-watch next week on SmackDown. I gave last week's show a 7 out of 10, but this one had a couple of... But that had the Bayley face turn, and it had Roman and Rock coming out at the end. This one was a little bit more underwhelming. That's why it's a 5.5. Because you're going to get good matches on every show. There's no terrible matches in WWE these days, but no classics in a while either. I've noticed most matches are always in the low to mid 3-star ratings-wise. But only 4 matches on this show. I want to say this episode was more storyline driven with prolonged stories that exist, but no major movement, sort of like a soap opera. There wasn't too much movement in the stories. So now we have to just sit through a Raw, and we'll at least have some qualifying matches on it. I think LA Knight's going to be on Raw, if not SmackDown, for his qualifier. One more main show until next week's show where we see everyone stands with The Rock and Reigns. If The Rock goes full heel, we'll see. If he makes a new heel, maybe it's not Hollywood Rock, but it's a different heel. We'll see where it all goes. Maybe he's in the bloodline. Like there's a lot of options. That's why next week's show is a must-watch. That does it for this week's show. If there's any more to this story, though, that happens online or backstage, I'll make a video about it before Raw. In the meantime, hit like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thanks for watching my review. Continue to check out my channel. I do the Monday Night Wars daily, having a great time with Nitro and Raw. So if I don't see you with a video on this subject, I'll see you next with those videos every day, including a Raw preview on Sunday. In the meantime, hit like and subscribe. Like I said, I'm Brett Mix for the SmackDown Review, February the 9th, 2024 from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Brett Mix, and I'm out.